We are. We are. We are. We are. We are. We are. Orlando. And there will be not one more. 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 Orlando. For those of you that watched the Tonys last night, you might remember this. Love is 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 love. We're going to be getting started in just a few minutes. I'd like to ask everybody to move as close as you can to the stage. We are a big community tonight, so get close, hold hands, hug the person next to you, because tonight we are one.
God, you've got one mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the Lesbian and Gay Big Apple Corps Marching Band. When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Gun control!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Gun control!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Gun control!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Gun control!
When do we want it?
Now!
We are. 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 Orlando.
We are Charleston. We are Chicago. And now we are Boston. We are Boston. We are Baltimore. Fuck this shit.
We are Newtown.
We are Newtown.
Sandy Hook.
We are Sandy Hook.
Some entourage is making that noise.
Let's hear it for the governor! Let's go!
Is that the only microphone? Is that the only microphone?
have to tell you, being here and seeing all of your faces has comforted me in a way that I did not expect on the way down here. So, yay us for coming together and doing what we're supposed to be doing. So give yourselves a round of applause. I am indeed Orlando, and in times like this, I find myself at a loss for what to do. You feel helpless, so I'm going to give you the one thing that I always have readily available. There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere. There's a time for us, somewhere a time for us, time together with time to spare, time to learn, time to share, somewhere, someday we'll find a way of forgiving, we'll find a new way of living somewhere. There's a time for us, a time and place for us. Hold my hand and we're halfway there. Hold my hand and I'll take you there someday, somewhere, somewhere. I love you guys.
God, you guys look beautiful. You can't see it, but I think you actually go past 7th Avenue on both sides, and that's how we show our strength as a community. My name is Eunice Ortiz, and I'm the president of Stonewall Democrats. We're here tonight, obviously, because now, by now, as all of you know, yesterday morning, we were all affected by the tragedy that happened in Orlando, and we are Orlando here in New York City. 49 LGBT people lost their life to senseless violence, violence that could have been avoided. And we cannot stand by that. By coming here tonight, we are sending a message that we are not less than, that we are equal and our lives will be respected. I will say today couldn't have happened without the swift work of Governor Cuomo's office and Mayor de Blasio's office, who are both here with us tonight. We also have, and please bear with me, I do want to recognize our elected leaders, because sometimes in New York City we live in a bubble and we don't realize that we are a city and a state that are more progressive than more states out there. And if you're like me from a state that doesn't have leaders like we have here in New York, you may forget that. So I do want to recognize those elected leaders here with us tonight. Comptroller Scott Stringer, Public Advocate Letitia James, Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Borough President Melinda Katz, Congress Member Meeks, openly gay council members Rosie Mendez, openly gay council member Corey Johnson, openly gay council member Jimmy Vaca from the Bronx, Openly Gay Councilmember Richie Torres from the Bronx. Openly Gay Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer. And Openly Gay Councilmember Carlos Menchaca. We also have our allied council members, Councilmember Gorodnik, Councilmember Crowley, Councilmember Levin, Councilmember Jumani Williams, and Councilmember Lander. Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. is also here with us tonight. We also have Openly Gay Senator who covers the Stonewall Inn, Senator Brad Hoylman. And the city doesn't stop with the support of the mayor and its electeds. We also have the support of our city commissioners. City Commissioner Calise, City Commissioner Carrion, Banks, Malalis, and General Counsel Maya Wiley. We also have the support of our district attorneys, Brooklyn DA Thompson and Manhattan DA Cy Vance. And we also have the support of our NYPD and our Police Commissioner Bratton. I want to say the fact that we were all able to come here in 24 hours and realize that we needed to stand together to show our support not only in New York City but across the globe is telling to the power of the LGBTQA community. We are not one, we are many. And when we stand together, we stand stronger than any other point in history. I do want to bring up our first speaker. He has been a friend and an ally to our community, and that's Governor Cuomo. From passing marriage equality in 2011 and enacting gender last year, Governor Cuomo has always stood shoulder to shoulder with us, and I can say that firsthand. Though not just words but actions, the governor has sent a message across our nation that this state will not tolerate bigotry or discrimination in any form. He has affirmed that in New York, you have the right to live free. And that is something I think we can all be thankful for. Now, across this country, people look to New York as a leader in the progressive and LGBT movement. Governor Cuomo is our friend and a national champion for the LGBT rights movement. Please join me in welcoming our friend, Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. First, to Eunice Ortiz and all the people who worked so long and hard to organize today. Let's give them a round of applause. And this is a beautiful sight. This is New York at its best, coming together to speak with one voice. Give yourselves a round of applause. You know, the Orlando massacre, I'm sure, has stirred a cauldron of emotions in all of us. The shock, the pain, over 100 people killed or injured. The senselessness of it is staggering. The frustration at a society that would allow a madman to buy an assault weapon has gone on for too long. We went through it at Sandy Hook. How many people have to die before this federal government comes to its senses? We had Columbine, we had Virginia Tech, we had Sandy Hook, we had San Bernardino, we had Aurora, Colorado. When does it stop? We passed gun control in this state. We outlawed assault weapons in this state. We know it can be done. We know it can be done. We know it's controversial. We know it takes political courage. But we're saying to our federal government, we want that political courage shown. And don't you come home until you pass sensible gun control. And it stops now. it does us no good as a state to outlaw an assault weapon when someone can get in a car and drive 3 hours to another state and buy it and drive it over our border. Until we have a national policy, none of us are safe. And this is an American curse. It is not an international curse, and we should learn and we should move forward. But my friends, it's worse. This was not just a senseless act. There was literally a method to the madness. It targeted the LGBT community, and that is vile, and that is evil, and that is hatred, and we must all stand up with one voice and condemn this activity as one society. Now the question is, with all this emotion, what do we do with it? What do we do with it? And what I say to you tonight is, let's take that emotion and let's make it a force for good, and let's make it a positive force. And let's take that emotion and let's rise up and let's rise above, and let's reject the ignorance and reject the bigotry and don't stoop to their level. And let's forge a community that is actually strengthened by this attack and more unified to achieving justice for all. Let us this evening, let us follow Martin Luther King's words when he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Let us heed the words. Let us heed the words of James Baldwin. Love does not begin and end the way we think it does. Love is a battle. Love is a war. And it is a war we cannot lose. Let's do, my friends, what New York does at its best. What we do at our best is we rise to the occasion and we show the way forward. That's what we did when we were the first big state to pass marriage equality, and it rippled all across this nation. That's what we did when we stood up as a state and we passed gender, and it rippled all across this nation. When we passed the hate crimes law that is the strongest in the United States, and it rippled all across this nation. When we stood up and banned conversion therapy, and it rippled all across this nation. New York is not just another state, he says as an arrogant New Yorker. New York is different, and New York is special, and when New York talks and New York speaks and New York leads, the other states take notice. Let's say tonight, with this emotion we feel, this is the day that the federal government must promise us that they will pass sensible gun control, because enough is enough. We say to our enemies tonight, you haven't caused us fear. You have caused us to be more unified than ever before, and let's pledge tonight to have the largest pride parade in history and have the largest turnout. And I will be with you shoulder to shoulder, marching, and let's show them our response and invite every New Yorker to the largest and the safest pride parade in history. Let us do what we did after 9/11. And let us build back a monument better than ever before. Let us make Stonewall not just a national monument, but an international symbol for all to know that freedom started here in 1969 in the Stonewall, and it moved this state, and this state moved this nation, and we will not stop until we have freedom for all. And my friends, let us recommit ourselves tonight as we are here. Let us join hands one with the other, and let us say to the world, we believe in New York. We are all in this together. We are all one. We are a family of New Yorkers. We are a community. And there's a cord that connects you to you to you to you, and maybe you can't see it. Maybe it's an invisible cord, but it is there. And it connects us, and the cord weaves a fabric. And we believe in New York, when one of us is raised, we are all raised. And when one of us is lowered, we are all lowered. And we believe in New York that an attack on any of us is an attack on all of us. And that's what you have done. And we tell our enemies, we do not fear you, we pity you. And you have not struck terror into our hearts, you have unified our hearts. And New York promises Orlando and every community across this globe that we stand more united today, more committed today to the fight for individual freedom than ever before. No one's going to tell us who we are or how to live our lives or the person we were meant to be. That's what New York is all about. And we promise to rededicate ourselves to the cause of freedom together as one. God bless you.
Thank you, Governor Cuomo. You know, before we go to our next special guest, I just want to highlight that we had so many organizations involved in making today possible. Something of this magnitude doesn't happen easily, and I want to specifically thank our sisters and brothers in the other LGBT Democratic clubs in our city, Lambda Independent Democrats of Brooklyn, Gay and Lesbian Independent Democrats in Manhattan, the Lesbian and Gay Democratic Club of Queens, as well as the Jim Owls Democratic Club in the west side of Manhattan as well. Now, you might know him as a Grammy-nominated multi-platinum artist, and you might also know him as a strong and stealth advocate for the LGBT community. Please join me in welcoming Nick Jonas.
Hello. Thank you all so much for having me here. I'm so humbled, and I think more than anything, I just want to speak from the heart and say that I woke up yesterday to the news, like all of you, and my heart broke. I grew up here in New York City and New Jersey, performing on Broadway shows, surrounded by some of my closest friends from the LGBT community. My father, a minister from New Jersey, shaped my view that love is love, and we are all equal. And that no matter who you are, where you're from, or where you're going in your life, You have the right to love and to be loved. I love you. And so yesterday, thinking about the families of the victims and the lives lost, I just thought, that could be my friend. That could be my people. And all I thought was, I feel such pain and sadness for the victims and their families. And what's so powerful is how brave this group is here today, and how brave all of the LGBT community is. And I'm humbled and honored to be able to say that we are powerful and we can make a change. And I'm no politician. I have a humble and small voice. But when you look out and you see the faces here, you know that if we all raise our small voices, we can do a lot of good. And we do need to see change. Enough is enough. And I think we're headed in the right direction. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And please know you are not alone. New York is so strong. And we ain't scared of anybody. Love you all. God bless.
Good evening, New York! My name is Jennifer Louise Lopez. I am the Executive Director of Everything Transgender in NYC. I am here because we have to stand together. We have to stand stronger than ever. Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson in 1969. In 1969, two transgender women went to that bar and started a riot. Unfortunately, we're here today because we are facing terror in our community. There are terrorists coming after us. 49 people murdered in one day. At one time, 53 other people sent to the hospital with injuries. Now, I'm a transgender woman. And over the past year and a half, we have seen over 32 transgender women in the United States alone murdered. Those are the only ones that we know of. There are more. Trans lives matter. Exactly, exactly. So, this club, what a lot of people don't know about this club that night, it was Latin night, and it was a transgender night. All right? Who were these people after? They were obviously after the LGBT people, but primarily after the trans people that were there that night. And who do we have to blame for that? The American Family Association for spreading so much hate against us. You know, the American Family Association said that there was a bomb that went off at Target 4 days before this incident. Isn't that ironic? That wasn't a bomb. That was not a bomb. They weren't bombing us. They weren't bombing our policies at Target. We need to stand together. We need to unite. We need to stop the bickering in the community. All right? We need our allies to come out and help us in the trans community. All right? We need funding for organizations that are trans-led. I will say it again. We need funding for organizations that are trans-led. You need to help us as our allies. We need people to speak up about this damn bathroom issue. All right? Because I ain't no man walking into a bathroom. All right? And they don't want to see what's going to happen if those bills start to pass and they get transgender men walking into the women's room. I'll tell you, I feel uncomfortable. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. And who does New York love? Who does New York love? Who does New York love?
York, you look beautiful. My name is Shelby Chestnut. I'm the Director of Community Organizing and Public Advocacy at the New York City Anti-Violence Project. Before I start, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the victims, as well as their families and friends at the Pulse nightclub shooting, who are left to make sense of this tragedy in the coming days. To all of you, I say, we see you, we are with you, and together we're going to create a world in which all LGBT people live a life that is free of violence. As many of you know, AVP is the largest LGBT anti-violence organization in the country. And like everyone here tonight, our hearts were broken yesterday with the news of the largest mass shooting in recent history that killed over 49 LGBT people at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Absolutely, a lot of them were Latinos and Latinas and Latinx. I want to thank the Stonewall Democrats for putting this important press conference together and inviting AVP to speak. This national tragedy happened at the backdrop of anti-LGBT legislation that's sweeping our nation, which is something we cannot afford in this time of sorrow and grief to ignore. We, as an LGBTQ community, must not get distracted and think that this is an isolated incident of violence. This tragedy is a result of extreme and deadly violence and legislation that is legally sanctioned by governments and people across this country. And it is on us to make that stop. In 2015, the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, which AVP coordinates, responded to 24 hate violence homicides, and 62% of them were people of color. This devastating statistics makes the reality of what happened in Orlando much more troubling and further points to the epidemic of violence that LGBT people are facing in New York City and nationally. In this time of sorrow, our city cannot allow or perpetuate anti-Muslim sentiment because of the shooter's identity. The hate violence Muslim communities face is no different than the violence our LGBTQ community faces. In this time, we must stand together as LGBT leaders, as Muslim leaders, and denounce this violence in our community. This violence includes increased policing in historic LGBT neighborhoods right here, in the wake of this national tragedy. Our communities do not need increased police presence and profiling to be safe. We need a national response to denounce this violence that is led by LGBT people of color, LGBT immigrant communities, trans and gender nonconforming people of color, LGBT Muslims communities, LGBT young people who daily exist at the face of this deadly violence. In closing, I call all of us to action to address the systemic and deadly violence impacting LGBT people that is rooted in transphobia and homophobia. We must come together to create a world which is free of violence so we can all live safely. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Leah Gunn Barrett, and I'm the Executive Director of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. I lost a brother to gun violence, and I also have a brother who is gay. Every act of gun violence is personal to me, as it should be to all of us. Mass shootings grab us, but don't forget that today another 92 Americans will die from guns, and tomorrow will be the same. What happened in Orlando was a hate crime committed by an American-born male who was an angry, homophobic, wife-abusing, wannabe cop twice interviewed by the FBI, and despite all of that, he was legally able to buy an AR-15 assault rifle and high-capacity ammunition magazines. America has no monopoly on these kinds of individuals. What sets us apart from other countries is it's dead easy for anyone to get their hands on a gun. This act of hatred was so deadly because of the gun that was used. This was designed by the military to kill as many human beings as quickly and efficiently as possible on the battlefield. AR-15s have been used time and again to slaughter Americans in our schools, houses of worship, movie theaters, malls, and nightclubs. Any shooting, whether it's deemed a mass shooting or not, is an act of terrorism. To the person being shot, to their friends, and to their family and communities. We need to restrict these lethal means to carry out acts of hate. After Sandy Hook, Congress did nothing. So we worked at the state level, and New York did take action. But we need to keep up the pressure on the state and also go back to Congress and demand that our feckless leaders do what we've done here in New York. Restrict assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition magazines, pass criminal background checks on all gun sales, and prohibit people on the terrorist watch list and no-fly list from buying guns. That's not hard. Just because New York is safer than other states is not an excuse for us to slack off. I'm sorry the governor's not here because we think he should waste no time and develop and implement the point-of-sale ammunition background check system that was part of the SAFE Act and get the legislature to step up and fund it. And we ask the mayor and the governor to use their executive authority and purchasing power of New York City and New York State to demand smart guns and microstamp guns for the NYPD and the state police. I want to share an email I got today from a mother here in New York. It will serve as a call to action for each and every one of us. She wrote to me, "It was horrible what happened in Florida, but right here in New York City, we have parents losing their children. Just over the weekend, a mother was killed in the Bronx and another man was killed. We cannot ignore any shooting, yet a lot of the families right here in New York feel they are being ignored." She went on to say, "When we label these deaths, mass shootings, hate crimes, or by any other name, it diminishes and ignores the everyday gun violence that impacts our communities." She lost her son in 2011, and she said, "His case is still unsolved. And way too many other parents have unsolved cases. It feels like nobody cares about us. When you look at the big picture, all gun violence is rooted in hate. My son's life was just as valuable, and my pain from his loss is just as real." Now, I would like to introduce someone who is all too familiar with gun violence. Dr. Sheldon Tepperman. He's a trauma director at Jacobi Hospital's Level 1 Trauma Center in the Bronx. He's an NYAGV board member, and he's my friend.
Yes. I have been asked to characterize the devastating lethality of the weapon used in yesterday's carnage from a trauma surgeon's perspective. I will turn to that grim task in a moment. But first I want to mention a conversation, a dialogue that has been happening around me in the last 2 days. It goes to the question of whether the event in Orlando was particularly horrible because it was visited upon our community. Doesn't every life count? Aren't we all of equal value? Is it special just because the victims were gay? The question made me a bit angry and a bit sad. I've chosen not to answer it until right now. But I would say this to you, my gay brothers and sisters and transgenders, you are special, very special to me. My wonderful partner, James, was witness to the death of his mother at age 3, a gun in the home, another statistic. He is very special to me. Now to the task at hand, the assault weapon, the weapon of Sandy Hook and of San Bernardino, and now tragically of Orlando. These weapons have a muzzle energy of at least 5 times greater than a standard 9mm handgun. This translates to a massive increase in wounding capacity. As we saw yesterday, the case fatality ratio was nearly 50%. That is simply unprecedented for a civilian event. Instead of passing through the body, the weapon is designed to create a cavity of energy that literally explodes organs and severs limbs. Its very name, assault weapon, should end any doubt that this weapon is somehow used in self-defense or for sport or hunting. It was designed with one sole purpose: to kill human beings, and as we saw yesterday, it does its job very well. The worst day in a trauma surgeon's life when he has to tell a mother or father that their child is never coming home, a victim of senseless gun violence. We call that death telling. At our trauma center, the operating room is just a short 20 yards away from the family waiting area. When you have just pronounced a young person dead on the OR table and walk down that corridor, it is a very long and very lonely walk. It might as well be 20 miles. And you steel yourself for the difficult conversation that is to come. You try to find words that in some way mitigate the grief, to find words of comfort. I am terribly sorry. I am terribly sorry. Those 4 horrible words that every mother dreads. We did everything we could do. But that is only a half-truth. While it is true that modern trauma medicine, with its scientific achievements and trauma systems, can often cheat death, these things pale in comparison to the lethality of the assault weapon. If in truth we had, as a society, done our all, that child would never lay on my operating table, never have faced a fusillade of bullets. He or she would have simply gone home at the end of the night in the warm embrace of their boyfriend or girlfriend, you know, just kid stuff. I have met and worked with many survivors of gun violence and their families. I have often been impressed by the resilience of the human spirit. People do move on and pick up their lives. But when you look into their eyes, you can always see that there is a piece missing. They carry the tragedy with them forever. But take heart. The answer to the scourge of gun violence and these mass shootings lies before us. You have already heard that our mayor and our governor have courageously been at the head of the battle. As Governor Cuomo told us, in the aftermath of the Sandy Hook shooting, he managed to get the SAFE Act passed, a series of sensible but strict gun safety laws, including an assault weapons ban for New York State. It also closed the gun show loophole and prohibited the use of high-capacity magazines. I remember the governor faced fierce criticism. It is too early, too soon to talk of the politics of gun regulation. We have just buried our dead. It is too complex. We need more debate. And to that, the governor answered, it is not too early, it is too late. Too many have died. And there has not been too little debate, there has been too much. And with that, we have the SAFE Act, and lives are being saved every day. And my prescription for the public health crisis that is gun violence in America is simple. We take that seminal piece of legislation, the SAFE Act, and we spread it across this great land, every state, and make it a federal legislation. And if we do that, we will have an end to this carnage and the 30,000 gun deaths a year, and an end to that long, lonely walk down that corridor of grief. I thank you.
Wow. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is great. My name is Mirna Haidar, and I'm from the Muslim Alliance for Sexual and Gender Diversity, and I am both Muslim and queer gender non-conforming woman. I'm also a refugee who came to the United States for safety and to find refuge. But I came here to find hate and discrimination for every identity that I held and that I embodied. My body is discriminated against because of who I am as Muslim, refugee, gender, non-conforming woman. Yesterday, while we were speaking just here, 2 individuals yelled, "Muslims are the problem, arrest them all." Few days before that, someone yelled in my face, "Kill all Muslims." Is that the country I seeked asylum for? And last week, I and other queers were discriminated against by Governor Cuomo for boycotting companies that foster violence both in the States and in Palestine, such as G47, where the shooter himself worked there. My body is tired and my soul is bruised from all the discrimination that we have to endure. You see, fueling hate is not the remedy to hate itself. I stand before you to talk about intersectionalities. Our bodies are the battlefield of these discriminatories and dangerous rhetorics, whether it be Islamophobia, homophobia, or transphobia. As we stand here together in solidarity, grieving together and fighting for freedom for all queer bodies, for all immigrant communities, for all Muslim communities, and for Palestinian liberation, it is very important for us not to treat hate with more hate. It is very important for us not to treat hate with more hate, but that we tackle the root systematic problem. The real problem is that until this day in this country, queer blood is not accepted for donations to the wounded in Orlando. The real problem is that in this country, guns are dangerously accessible and that the culture of gun violence is fostered. The real problem is that we have systematic discriminatory policies against Muslims like myself. And this is the most important point. The real problem is Islamophobia that shifts and steals focus away from what and who we should focus on. Today is about hate and discrimination. Today is about people of color and particularly about trans people of color. Thank you so much. And I would just like to share a personal note that I'm fasting for Ramadan, and I think this is the best day of Ramadan because I will be breaking fast right here with all of you in a few minutes. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I have heard you say their names. We are going to say every victim's name before we leave here tonight. And I wish you in the back could see what I see up here because we have every community represented. We are going to say every name by every faith, by every background, by every ethnicity, because we are a full LGBT community. The next person I want to call up is an openly lesbian council member, Rosie Mendez, who I consider a good friend. She is not only a friend to us as Stonewall Democrats and to her community in the Lower East Side, but she has always stood with the LGBTQ community across the city when we've needed her. Please join me in welcoming Councilmember Rosie Mendez.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted my colleagues to join me here on stage, but I'm afraid the stage might fall down. So anyway, I'm going to get started with my speech. I am Rosie Mendez, and I am an out Puerto Rican lesbian in the New York City Council. I am also the chair of the largest LGBT caucus in the New York City Council. And my brothers are standing behind me, so thank you all for being here. Yesterday, for me, was a bittersweet day, for I was filled with pride as I marched with my friends in the 59th Puerto Rican Day Parade. Yesterday's parade honored and acknowledged the contributions of the LGBT Ricans who laid the foundation for our rights on our island. However, as we were celebrating those achievements, the details were unfolding of how our LGBT brothers and sisters of Puerto Rican, Latino, and African American descent were murdered in the nightclub in Orlando, Florida. 50 of our hermanos y hermanas were murdered, and another 53 were injured in the June 12th tragedy. While this investigation is ongoing, it is clear that the Orlando shooter attacked the Pulse nightclub clientele because they were gay, because they were part of the LGBT community. And because they were Latino. He killed 50, but he attacked us all. And he attacked us because of who we are and because of whom we choose to love. And simply, this is a hate crime. And we are mourning, but we will not be silent. We cannot be silent because the memories of our 50 LGBT brothers and sisters demand that we speak out against this senseless crime. It demands that we organize so that no other individual can perpetuate such a hideous crime in the future. And that is why we must organize to ban the sale of semi-automatic assault-style weapons in this country. We must organize to have real, meaningful gun control legislation. And maybe we would not have been able to stop what happened in Orlando. But if a ban existed, then I am sure that this would not be what it is being called today, the deadliest mass murder in U.S. history. I want to read a few lines from Pedro Pietri's poem, Puerto Rican Obituary. Juan, Miguel, Milagros, Olga, Manuel, all died yesterday, today, and will die again tomorrow. All died waiting for the Garden of Eden to open up again under a new management. All died dreaming about America. Orlando, please know that the Puerto Rican Latino community, the LGBT community, and all of New York City mourns with you. We cannot and we will not let their deaths be in vain. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Our final speaker before we go into the final part of our night is no stranger to the LGBT community. He has stood by us, he has fought for us since he took office in 2014, and he's been a champion for LGBT rights across this city and across this country, Mayor Bill de Blasio. know sometimes some of us who work in government or politics, we might think that everyone knows what's going on, and sometimes we don't do enough to let you know what is happening downtown. But if you didn't know, Mayor de Blasio created the first ever Commission on Gender Equity. That is to leverage the power of city government to expand and increase the opportunity for all New Yorkers in every borough, regardless of their sex, gender, or sexual orientation. The city continues to lead the nation of protecting transgender and gender nonconforming people. Earlier this month, NYC became the first municipality to launch a campaign specifically to say, use the bathroom that you want to use. Don't be forced to use a bathroom that you don't feel comfortable using. How simple is that? He also helped with the help of Public Advocate Tish James and Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito and our openly gay Councilmember Carlos Menchaca to launch ID NYC, which gives everybody the opportunity to have an identification. In addition, and something I'm very proud of, he increased shelter beds for our city's homeless. And that is something we needed to continue to fight for and continue to grow. So please join me in welcoming our friend, Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Thank you so much, Unit. I want to thank everyone who's here. There are thousands of people in this direction. There's thousands of people in this direction back here. All in solidarity, all in common cause. And when thousands of people come together in love, in support, it is a renunciation of hatred. It is a way of overcoming pain. So your very act of solidarity tonight starts to move us forward. I want to thank the Stonewall Inn for hosting us, for once again being the place where change is made. I want to thank the Stonewall Democrats and all of the LGBT organizations that worked around the clock the last 24 hours to make this vigil come together, and all the faith leaders and elected officials, all the leaders here today in common cause. 49 lives cut short, and we value them all, and we feel a special pain for the family of Enrique L. Rios of Brooklyn. We lost a good young man from Brooklyn, a caring and loving young man who was already serving others. He was attending nursing school while working with our senior citizens as a social worker. This is the kind of good human being we lost in Orlando, someone with a life ahead of making this world a better place. We lost Enrique and 49 others, and it was more than an attack on 49 Americans. It was an attack on American values, and it was an attack on New York values. We believe in inclusion. We believe in a society filled with unity and an embrace of all people. We do not accept anyone who would sow division or hatred. We do not accept the notion of any of our leaders sowing hatred and division, particularly in the wake of tragedy, and that means you, Donald Trump. We feel pain, and we know we will never replace those who are lost. They will never come back. But we still have so much that reminds us of what we are here to do. We have a history, a rich history, starting right here, a rich history of constant progress and constant progressive change in this city. We have the hope that comes from having righted wrongs in the past and knowing we can right more in the future. For centuries, this city has done something that so few places in the world have done. We have been a place where you could be from anywhere, you could have any faith, you could love anyone. And this could be a place for you. And we have more work to do in this city, but we believe in something, and it marks us as a beacon to the world. We believe that inclusion and tolerance and love and understanding are the way forward for this earth, and we show it every day in New York City. And that is why I say to Latino New Yorkers, we stand with you and we will protect you. That is why I say to LGBT New Yorkers, we stand with you and we will protect you. And that is why I say to Muslim New Yorkers, we stand with you and we will protect you. Because we are all New Yorkers, we are all Americans, and yes, we are Orlando. This killer, this terrorist wanted us to stand away from our values, to move away from what we hold dear. This killer wanted to separate us from each other, to sow dissension, to make us move apart from one another. We need to, in this moment, move toward each other. We need to show that the answer to that hatred is greater love and inclusion. And we have an opportunity, and I say this to people all over the United States tonight. Come to New York for the Pride Parade. Come join us. Come join us in solidarity with people all over this country. It will be safe, and we will protect each other. And we will send a message to this nation and this world of what our society should look like. That's what that parade will say to us all. And finally, a message to the United States Congress. When we each take the oath of office, we are charged with protecting the safety of all those we serve. Unless our Congress passes sensible gun safety legislation, they are not living up to their oath of office. A few words in Spanish, and then I want you to hear from my dear colleagues. 49 inocentes han muerto ayer en un acto de odio y terror en Orlando. Sin embargo, aunque perdimos tanto en esta tragedia, aún tenemos algo valioso que nadie nos puede quitar. Nuestro compromiso de ayudar al prójimo y nuestros valores de inclusión y tolerancia. Gay, latinos o musulmanes, todos somos neoyorquinos. Todos somos americanos. Y todos somos Orlando. Now I want to introduce someone who has devoted her life to spreading love and tolerance and to defeating the stigmas that afflict us all, our First Lady, Chirlane McCray.
Good evening, New York. Good evening, family. Thank you all for standing in solidarity with Orlando. Less than a year ago, many of us marched past this very spot as loud and as proud as we've ever been. Gay marriage was finally legal in all 50 states. Love had won a resounding victory. And the movement that began in part right here, had changed the world forever and for the better. Now, that day seems very far away right now, because today our thoughts are with Orlando and everyone who lost their lives at Pulse, yet another LGBTQ haven that will enter the history books as a site of terrible, terrible violence. The killer alone bears the ultimate responsibility for his heinous act. But make no mistake about it, Omar Mateen had many enablers. He was enabled by a gun industry that values profits more than people. And all the lawmakers who are beholden to their blood-stained dollars. He was enabled by terrorists who claim to represent a noble religion, when in fact they are nothing but hateful nihilists. And while we will never know for certain exactly what he was thinking, it is possible that Omar Mateen was enabled by a society that too often ignores mental illness until it's far too late. In honor of those we have lost, we must channel our anger at the killer and his enablers into action. We must show the gun-beholden lawmakers that they have two options: get on the right side of history or get pushed aside. Their argument that easy access to guns is keeping our children and families safe has been proven false, tragically and definitively false, because no one is safe unless we are all safe. We must show the terrorists that every act of violence only binds us closer to our Muslim brothers and sisters who know better than anyone that true Islam is a religion of peace. We must change the culture around mental health so people who are struggling can find help before their illness becomes all-consuming. We must pass the Mental Health Reform Act of 2016. And on June 26th, when we march past Stonewall, we must again raise our voices loud and clear. We must hold our friends and allies tighter and closer than ever. And we must dance with a righteous joy, because this movement was founded on love, and we will not stop dancing. We will not stop demonstrating. We will not stop demanding change until everyone and every love is safe. Peace.
And a man who has devoted his life to keeping us safe and is making New York City safer, our police commissioner, Bill Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. In this very special place, at this very special time, we come together to celebrate what we are: diverse. Diversity. As Robert Kennedy told a crowd in Indianapolis nearly 50 years ago, just hours after the assassination of Martin Luther King, what we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but love and wisdom and compassion toward one another. in a feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country. People can be killed for what they stand for, their values, their convictions, and their principles cannot. So as we reflect on the lives so senselessly and violently ended, we ask ourselves where we go from here. We remain vigilant against every threat at home and abroad, and we make the effort, as RFK pleaded,